Welcome to the Inquiry. I'm Gregory Harms. I know. I promised that today would be, or this episode would be, about. I don't know. I don't remember. I think Vietnam. It's coming. We're gonna do this one. We're gonna do a guest appearance and a discussion of Orientalism. We're gonna do Vietnam, and we're gonna do. I've received a couple questions about Islam, so I thought that'd be really good. We'll do a whole episode just on Islam, just the history of Islam, what Islam is, just run through the whole thing. The Prophet Muhammad, the Quran, the whole bit. That'll be a good one. So today we're going to talk about really metaphysics. What's real? What does that word even mean? But I want to. Oh yeah, I forgot to show you this. I made a note. In the description under the video. I made a note and I had a link to where to buy them. But I want to show them to you. I don't want to spill soap powder all over the friggin' place. Because these boxes are not great. I want to show you these. Pretty cool, huh? I got 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. And I just put them next to my Andy Warhol cow. And they're the same logo type as the original, the boxes that Andy Warhol did. So I bought some Brillo boxes, and now they're art. They're art. Because I say they're art. One moment. Oh, God, gravy, Murray. Okay, a little bit of powder came out. That's okay. All right, so I just want to show you that. And they have undergone an ontological shift. Whoa. Big word, ontological. We're going to get to that in a minute. See, that powder gets everywhere. Those boxes are not great. Back to bubbly. Cherry. And then there's a video. I've been laughing about this video all morning. I'll show you the video. It's really funny. Oh, to me it's funny. It's Mick Jagger talking about the band Spandau Ballet. If you remember Spandau Ballet from the 80s.
For me, compared to sort of a group like Spandau Ballet, I mean, there's no comparison in musically talent as well as on stage. Mind you, I say that, but I've never seen Spandau Ballet on stage, so that unfair, really.
It is. Oh,
I've seen them on the video.
And I don't know why they came up in this video, but in this interview, but Mick just makes his thoughts relatively clear. I just love the video. I saw them on the video. You saw them on the video. Okay, Mick. That just makes me laugh. And the facial expression he makes. I saw them on the video. Okay, so I had to get that out of my system. Because I've been laughing about that since this morning. And what else? Okay, yeah, so what is real? So let's start with Heraclitus, pre-Socratic philosopher. So the philosophers before Socrates we call pre-Socratic philosophers. Now, some of the pre-Socratic philosophers were contemporaries of Socrates, but it's just a catch-all category that scholars use to talk about philosophy basically before Socrates. And one of the heavy hitters is Heraclitus, who is known for having said, and we don't know if we know if he really said it, but it's a pretty good sentence. You cannot step in the same river twice. So what does that mean? Well, that's deceptively simple. You can't step in the same river twice. Okay, of course the river's moving, so it's always going to be different water. But the river itself is changing constantly. That is, erosion and so on, and the weather, and the level of the water goes up and down, and it's constantly changing no matter what aspect of the river you're talking about. All of it's changing. And furthermore, I let students chew on this a bit, and then I drop the bomb. And this is the bomb. You ready for it? You ready? You ready to have your mind blown? You can't step in the same river twice. You can't step in the same river twice. Even if the river stayed still and never changed, you couldn't. Because you're changing every day. Right? So we got a problem here. Now, Heraclitus's solution to this problem is called logos. And it's a decent start. Logos is this thought that we organize our experiences by, basically. But that doesn't change the question of what is the river. So we talk about the Mississippi River. We talk about the whatever, the Nile River or whatever, the Euphrates. What is the river? If it's constantly changing, then what is it? What's it? What's the river? We keep talking about this thing, but the thing is like picking up a sandcastle that just gets away from you, And furthermore, who are you? Because, you newborn you, and however old you are now, and then 100-year-old you, there's 3 different people. That's 3 completely different people. They don't even look the same. Cellularly, they're not the same. They're different people. But they got the same name. People will call you, whatever your name is. People will call you that name. They've called you that since birth, and they're going to call you that after you're dead and gone. Oh, remember, Rick, whatever your name is. They're going to call you by that name when your bones are moldering in the ground, So Heraclitus really gets us off to a start, These are some pretty serious, significant, I should say, metaphysical problems that philosophers have been wrestling with for a couple thousand years now, a little more. And then Plato, our first great metaphysician, Plato, he attempts to solve the one versus I thought I was going to say that wrong. The one versus the many problem. So what's the one versus the many problem? To illustrate it, you've got a cloud in the sky, okay? We've all seen clouds in the sky. Now that cloud, let's say there's an individual big puffy cottony cloud up in the sky, and it's composed of bazillions of tiny, tiny, tiny water droplets that aren't touching, by the way. So we don't talk about tiny water droplets. We talk about clouds. Look at that cloud in the sky. It's in the shape of a chicken or whatever. We talk about clouds. We don't talk about water droplets. But the really, strictly speaking, there is no cloud there. There are just tiny, tiny bazillions of water droplets, really small water droplets. And that's what's in the sky, not a cloud. But we talk about clouds. So the one verse, excuse me, I should take a bubbly break. You're right. So, what's the relationship between the one cloud and the bazillion tiny water droplets? Is there a relationship between the two? Or if I go to the grocery store, and I see a giant pile of lemons, and there's like a couple hundred lemons there. Okay, there's, I don't know, millions and millions of lemons in the world. There's a couple hundred at the grocery store you're looking at, and yet there's one concept of lemon, one word, one concept, and yet there's all those lemons. So what's the relationship between those many lemons and the one lemon, right? So Plato's solution to this problem is he attempts to solve this problem, and his solution is he posits the forms, which were it comes from the Greek word eidos. It was translated as idea, like for a long time, and then I don't know, probably around the 80s, I guess. Around the 80s, people started you don't really see it translated as ideas anymore. It's translated as forms. I think the 80s is when that changed. I'd have to look that up, but I want to say the 80s. Because the ideas, the translation, that's like older translations. Older, monographs, older books on Plato. Newer books on Plato, they translate them. Almost everybody translates this as forms. So those are the forms. So what are the forms? The forms are these, and he kind of changes how he talks about the forms a little bit over the course of his career as a public intellectual and a thinker. You could think of the forms as a concept. So, like one perfect lemon, the perfect lemon, that's the form. One perfect lemon, like at one point he describes forms existing in this like heavenly realm. The perfect lemon. You could think of it as a concept. The thing you look up in the dictionary. You could look up lemon in the dictionary. And that thing you're looking up in the dictionary is perfect. Is perfect, eternal, and unchanging. Anything you look at, you can look up octopus in the dictionary. It doesn't matter what you look up in the dictionary. What you find in the dictionary, what you're even thinking about, is a concept. Now, if I tell you to picture an octopus in your head, or picture a lemon in your head, that's more particularized. You're gonna picture a particular octopus or a particular lemon. But the concept that you look up in the dictionary, that's the form. Okay, the forms are perfect, eternal, and unchanging. Now, for Plato, those are the most real things. All right, the 200 lemons at the grocery store, those are less real. Those are called particulars. And the form for Plato is the most real. So they have two very different, here comes again, ontologies. Ontology comes from the Greek word ontos, meaning being. So ontology is the study of being. And so if we say, the form of lemon has a greater or is ontologically prior, or it's more real, or however you want to put it, that they have a different ontology. There's the form of lemon, and then there's a lemon, and they got two completely different ontologies. What's here, what's material, is, for Plato, less real than the form. There's a concept of you. There's a concept of horse. There's a concept of anything, really. Paperclip, book, table, globe, can of bubbly. There's a form for all those things, right? And they are what all those particulars have in common. The thing that makes a horse, it derives its horseness, if you will, from the fact that it participates, key term, participates in the form of horse. And that's why the horse is a horse and it's not a turtle or something. That's why it's a horse. Okay, so Plato is placing more emphasis on the concept, and he feels that these concepts, these forms, are more real than the physical particular thing, the 200 lemons at the grocery store or whatever, the octopus in the ocean, the horse, the book on the table, whatever, the digital video camera. So Plato flips, basically, what we in the modern era, let's call this the modern era, what we've been encouraged to think about the world. Like, we're encouraged to think that table is the most real thing. There it is. I can weigh it. I can measure it. I can cut it in half. I could burn it. I could do whatever I want. I could paint it. Do whatever I want to it. There it is. It has a list of properties. I can geometrically, I could do a 3D model of it. I could, analyze it scientifically for whatever, the kind of wood that it is, and so on and so forth. We've been encouraged to think that that's the most real thing, but Plato, a couple thousand years ago, said, no, the most real thing is the concept of table. And the physical table that's right in front of you is less real. Less real than the concept of table. So he flips the whole thing. He flipped it before we even, got indoctrinated by the physical sciences. Because there really weren't any physical sciences back then. Plato's time, it was all the same thing. Philosophy, science, mathematics, those were all part of the same endeavor to understand the world. Things have changed since about the 18th century, and philosophy and the physical sciences have gone their separate ways. And, bubbly break. Do you have to mention it every time you take a sip? Yeah. Okay, so, fast forward, like, many centuries. He was born in 1596, died in 1650. That is René Descartes, famous French philosopher, who started as a scientist, started as a geometer, and wrote about optics and wrote about physics and wrote about a range of subjects. And then later in his career, he decided he's going to reboot philosophy. So he wrote the Meditations. I should do an episode on the Meditations. That'd be cool. So Descartes writes the meditations. Now he writes the meditations. He's got multiple motivations for doing so. He's got a personal motive. Should I do them now or should I get to him? I think I'll just do. I think I'll do him as I bump into him. So Descartes, he's going to reboot philosophy. He's going to get rid of. He's going to clear the table, as it were, of everything. He's going to radically doubt everything. There is no. The sky might not be blue. Triangles might not have three sides. There's no me. There's no God. There's no nothing. The table's not really there. Maybe this is all just a dream that some evil demon, is manipulating me to, see these items in the room, and the evil demon has convinced me that 2 + 2 = 4, and so on and so forth. So Descartes just gets rid of everything. Yeah. So now we got nothing. And Descartes says, "Well, it can't stay here, because this is a terrible way to go through life, like just doubting the existence of everything. So I can't stay here. So what is he going to do? Well, he can't doubt that I am having these experiences. They might not be real. The triangle might not have three sides. The 2 + 2 might not equal 4. The sky might be orange, but I can't doubt that I am having these experiences." So he puts I back on the table. Then he goes through an array of proofs for the existence of God, which I won't go into right now. He concludes that there is a God. God is perfect. God is no deceiver. Therefore, God wouldn't play tricks on me, so the sky really is blue. Triangles really have three sides. And 2 + 2 really equals 4. Okay, fine. So then he puts God back on the table. So mind, I, God, and then the third element of Descartes' metaphysics is body. That is physical bodies, not arms and legs body, although it does include that too. So he concludes that yes, the table's really there. The can of bubbly is really there. The stack of books is really there. Those are really there. Now, Descartes is Team Plato. He's wearing a Plato jersey, big time. There's a whole list of thinkers and scientists that are good and fed up with doing Aristotle, which had Aristotle been the talk of the town for, throughout the medieval period. I mean, he's been, so these guys are done with Aristotle, and they're like, yeah, Plato, like Team Plato, because Plato was relatively new. Because as of the 15th century in Europe, the works of Plato got transmitted and entered Europe, and European, artists and intellectuals and scientists just went Plato crazy. Curiously, Plato is the talk of the town. He's the new guy, which is weird. So Descartes is definitely Team Plato. So he puts emphasis, like Plato did, on innate knowledge and on this sort of conceptual understanding of the world, which Descartes, he focuses on the scientific and geometric end of things. He doesn't talk about the forms necessarily, but he talks about, with science, the table, the measurements, the weight, geometric considerations, and so on. Descartes said, I do that a lot. Descartes said that, okay, those things are there. The table's really there. But I can only see the table from one angle at a time through one pair of eyes. My eyes are changing. The time of day is changing. I could put different light bulbs in he didn't have light bulbs, but I get different light, will make the table look different. So my experience of the table is contingent. I can only put limited stock in my experience of the table. But the number 3, for example, that's in my mind is the same number 3 that's in God's mind. So emphasis gets placed on the eternal, like the number 3, and my experience of the physical world down here is de-emphasized like it was in Plato. So, along the way, so we got mind, God, and body. There's a tripartite structure to Descartes' metaphysics. Now, along the way, Descartes hits us with a thought experiment. He puts a piece of wax next to the fireplace. And the piece of wax, at first, has a list of properties. It's got a certain shape. It smells nice. You can lick it and it tastes nice. It's covered in honey, and whatever. It's got a list of properties. It's solid, so on and so forth. Put it next to the fireplace, and it melts and it burns and it gets all gross and melty. And now it doesn't smell nice anymore. Doesn't even look nice anymore. It's not solid anymore. It sure as hell wouldn't taste nice anymore. So the question for Descartes is, how do I know it's the same piece of wax? How do I know it's the same piece of wax? Because it's undergone a complete change of physical properties. It's a different thing, really. I mean, as far as my senses are concerned, it's a different thing. It might not actually be a different thing, but as I experience it, it's a different thing. There's a completely different list of visual, tactile properties. So Descartes was wondering, how do I know? Maybe you left the room, came back. There it is. It's all burnt and gross. Melty. For Descartes, he uses the word intuition. I have an intuition of the world. I don't check down a list of visual, physical properties and then draw conclusions. Like, oh, it's got a certain shape and blah blah blah. It's a book. Descartes, like, I don't experience the world that way. I have a conceptual grasp of the world. I have a conceptual grasp of the world, and I see the book, and I think of the concept book, and I think of the table. I see the table, and I think of the concept of a table. And same with the piece of wax. I know it's the same piece of wax because of what's called the term or phrase psychic continuity. There's a psychic continuity between my knowledge of the piece of wax before it was melty and gross, and then the wax becomes melty and gross, and there's a psychic continuity. There's a connection because of my conceptual grasp of objects in the world. It's how I experience the world. I experience the world conceptually. So, I was explaining this to students years ago, and a student raised her hand and said, "That's like Fiona." I said, "What?" She's like, "That's like Fiona and Shrek." I said, "Oh my God, that's really good. It's like Fiona and Shrek." So, I'm assuming most of you have seen Shrek. Fiona starts as a human, and then becomes an ogre, and then becomes a human again. And I think she turns into an ogre. I gotta rewatch the first film. I don't even think I saw the most recent Shrek. How many have they made? 3 or 4? I gotta get up to date with my Shrek. I gotta rewatch the first one though. But I think it goes human, ogre, whatever. I can't remember. But let's just say it's human, ogre. Okay?
Donkey, shh! I'm the princess.
Ah!
It's me in this body.
Oh my God, you ate the princess! Can you hear me?
Donkey.
Listen, keep breathing!
Well, little kids know that's always Fiona. And you could even change the, I think it's Cameron Diaz. You could even change the actress's voice. You could have somebody else do the ogre voice. Doesn't matter. Little kids know that's Fiona. Why? Well, it's Descartes' piece of wax. They know because of the psychic continuity, because they have a conceptual grasp of the thing. And the thing in this case is Fiona. So it doesn't matter if Fiona is in human form or ogre form. Little kids, little tiny kids will know that's Fiona all the time. Because they have a grasp of, there's a concept and there's a continuity from when Fiona is in human form and when she's in ogre form. It's fantastic. So Fiona is no different than Descartes' piece of wax. Total change of visual properties, and yet I know it's always Fiona, and I know it's the same piece of wax. It's how the human mind works. So, a little after Plato, early into the AD years, Greek writer, biographer, philosopher, he did a little bit of everything, Plutarch, hit us with a thought experiment, which I really enjoy explaining to students. Plutarch. It's called The Ship of Theseus. It's a lot of fun. The Ship of Theseus. Now, Theseus was the king of, at the time, the mythic king of Athens, and I believe he slayed the Minotaur, and then rescued a bunch of children. Okay, so he had a ship, the Ship of Theseus, and he decides the ship needs repairs, right? So the crew set to repairing the ship. Now they make repairs to the point that they change every single board, every single plank, even the masts and the sails. Everything's different. They've changed everything out. It is now materially a different ship. So the $64,000 question is it still the Ship of Theseus? And yes, that's how we experience it. The Ship of Theseus is really no different than Fiona, no different than Descartes' piece of wax. We got a completely different, materially unique and different ship. And yet I still think of it as the Ship of Theseus, even though everything's been changed, and it is physically a different ship. The physical thing is not, as we continue on our journey here, we're going to discover that the physical thing is not of particular significance to our experience of the world. The physical thing sort of becomes irrelevant. It's our conceptual grasp of the world, our intuition to use Descartes' word, that's the thing that tends to matter more than the physical table or whatever, or the physical ship of Theseus, or Fiona in human form, or whatever, so yeah, it's still the ship. It's still the ship of Theseus because that's how we experience it. Even though we've changed, the crew has changed every plank, every board, every nail, the mast and the sails and all that stuff. So then later, Thomas Hobbes, the father of English, he's the first major thinker to write in English. Thomas Hobbes, he adds a twist. He said, what if somebody collected all the old materials from the ship of Theseus? All the discarded boards and planks and nails and stuff, and rebuilt the ship of Theseus. So now you got two. You got the original ship of Theseus, and then you got the ship of Theseus, the new one, the repaired one. Now what? It's a good question. We still don't think of the old ship of Theseus, the reassembled old materials, as the ship of Theseus. We only think of the ship of Theseus as the thing belonging to Theseus, as that ship. And I don't think it belonging to him is the ticket. I don't think that's the issue there, is what belongs to Theseus. Because it could belong to somebody else. It'd still be the ship of Theseus, and then it'd be the ship of somebody else. But you still think of it as the same ship. And so Hobbes's twist, reassembling the old materials, the discarded materials, we still think of the ship of Theseus as the repaired ship of Theseus with all the new stuff. And I think this really throws a wrench into our understanding. Like I said, our you could say our indoctrination of of the conceit of the physical sciences. We're told that the physical things in front of us are real, we're told that the brain is real. The brain is the most real thing. There are neuroscientists to this day who say that we just need to do smarter neuroscience, and we're gonna crack the code. I bet they don't crack it this week. And I bet they don't crack it next week either. I'm not hopeful. Like we're gonna solve, what it means to be conscious, and solve how the brain works. And okay. If the sciences want to believe that, then fucking go right ahead, and they'll continue writing books and saying, "Yep, someday." Now we can do pretty impressive neuroscience. We can do imaging of the brain and functional MRI, and we've got vastly improved technology, and we've got a far better, far more refined vocabulary, and science is really doing pretty spectacular things in the realm of neuroscience, but that doesn't mean that we're going to get any closer to solving how the brain works. I just don't see it. There's no guarantee. Yes, we are smart, and we're really good at making tools. If we're good at anything, it seems like we're really good at making tools. Your smartphone is an astounding piece of engineering. That's really impressive stuff. That you're walking around with that thing in your pocket, and it is jaw-dropping how impressive that piece of technology is, the engineering that goes into it, and what it can do. I mean, to call it a phone is kind of funny, because it's like the phone is just one thing it does. A stand-up comedian I saw years ago said calling your smartphone a phone is like calling a Lexus a cup holder. I think I think he hit it about right there. Humans are good at humans are good at technology. They're good at making stuff. They're not very good at understanding the world. We don't know much about the brain, practically nothing. We don't know what the universe is. We don't know how big it is. We don't know if it's empty. It looks like it's empty, practically empty. It might be jam-packed. It might be full. We don't know. We can see farther than Galileo could see, way farther than Galileo could see, and yet we don't know what we're looking at. So the unknowns are, what's matter made out of? We don't know. You could say atoms fine. You could say quarks fine. We don't know what matter's made out of. We don't know why it has the property of gravity. It's all physical items have gravity in them, and yes, the Earth is pulling on you toward the Earth, but don't forget you're pulling on it. You're just losing because you're tiny, small, and the Earth is really big. So you're losing the fight, and that's why you're sitting in that chair or sitting on your couch or whatever, or luxuriating in the bath or wherever you are. It's why you're not floating around the room in your bathwater. We don't know why matter has that property added to it. It's there. So the sciences, I don't know, they seem to act like they've got a tighter grip on these things than they actually do. And a friend of mine, call it an allegory, I guess, likens us to humans, likens us to a goldfish in a bowl. There's a goldfish in a bowl, and next to the bowl there's a computer monitor, and it's on. Now, what is the chance of the goldfish figuring out the source of the light? The goldfish is never going to figure out that that's a computer monitor and it's on, because the goldfish can't. And we might be just like the goldfish. We can do smarter and smarter neuroscience and improve the technology of the imaging and so on. That doesn't mean we're going to solve the riddle of what consciousness is or how the brain works or whatever. There's a relationship between the brain and the mind. And Descartes was the first to suggest there are two different departments, the mind and the brain. There's a physical brain and there's a non-physical mind. And the brain is at the mercy of the laws of physics, and the mind is not. Though if you damage the brain, you damage the mind. The two are inextricably linked, but what do we, how much do we have to say about the physical brain? Not much. Like I said, we got, pretty impressive technology and a more refined vocabulary and more refined methodologies, but it doesn't really amounted to much. It really hasn't amounted to much. we're just, sort of we've been convinced that the physical world is the most real thing, and that anything non-physical is sort of, ancillary or whatever to the physical world. That we should focus on the brain, not the mind. And this is why the physical sciences are very impressed with themselves, because they got numbers. And those hippies in the philosophy department and those hippies in the English department, they don't have numbers. Though they too can be very impressed with the physical sciences, and they're envious of the physical sciences, because the physical sciences have this impressive vocabulary, and they got numbers, and there's a certain precision to what they do. And it's pretty sad when philosophy and theory and literature, up to a point, attempt to borrow from that, and they want that, which is always kind of sad. Just do what you do. Don't worry about what's going on in the physics department. The physics department doesn't even really know what the physics department's doing 3/4 of the time, if not 4/5. We don't have answers to these major questions. We don't have answers to, all those things I said about the universe, the mind, matter, so on and so forth. So what's science doing? I'll tell you what science is doing, the physical sciences. I'm not the first person to make this observation. They're taking meter readings. They're just collecting numbers. They're measuring stuff. What are they measuring? Don't ask them that. And that's a rude question. You're not supposed to ask scientists that. You're just supposed to be dazzled by the number. So that's all we got, the numbers attached to things we don't understand. So we get an image of the brain. Great. We no idea how the brain works. We got a better idea how the brain works than we have in previous centuries, but we don't got a lot to show for all the dazzling technology and vocabulary. We don't have much to show. Speaking of gravity, this was, Isaac Newton and company. He wasn't alone, but Isaac Newton is credited with, concluding action at a distance. Something he was not crazy about. Up until that point, that was just crazy. It was crazy to suggest that two things that aren't touching could affect one another. What were referred to as occult forces. They got to be touching in order to move one another. And how could the Earth be pulling on the Moon and the Moon be pulling on the Earth if they're not touching? And so Newton was forced to conclude that this has got to be what's happening. There's got to be action at a distance, which was tantamount to witchcraft. It was crazy, but that was the conclusion they were forced to draw. And at this point, science, the physical sciences, kind of said, the hell with it. We're not getting anywhere. See, before Newton, you could ask a scientist, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And the scientist would say, we're trying to understand the world. They don't talk like that anymore. Now they talk about technology. They talk about theories. They talk about, whatever. They don't talk about trying to understand the world anymore. Because as of, Newton, they just kind of said the hell with it. And really, at this time, metaphysics and philosophy said the hell with it too. At the time of Leibniz and Spinoza, those two thinkers came up with very dramatically different metaphysical systems. And so I think the world of philosophy looked at these two great thinkers producing these two systems that couldn't be more different, and they're like, what are we doing? These two are two of the greatest thinkers ever, and they came up with two systems that are so different that what's the point of this? So at this point, I think philosophy also kind of throws in the towel a bit, and just says, "What the hell with that? We're not getting anywhere," which is kind of interesting. This happens at the same time, philosophy, and then philosophy and science, which had been running, parallel. Those are, two concurrent pursuits, inquiries, modes of inquiry, types of inquiry. They start to go their separate ways. Science decides, well, we're going to focus on technology and theories, and philosophy says, okay, we're going to do our own thing, and they kind of go their separate ways as of the 18th century. And yeah, I think that's rather interesting that both areas, physical sciences and philosophy, had this sort of, each had a crisis of, if you could call it that, a crisis of identity, I guess. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? So, I ask. So we're left with, the question, the title of this episode: what is real? Well, I don't think that word really means much. It's not a particularly helpful word. I ask students. I'm like, I'll pick a student at random. I'll say, do you have a living grandmother? And the student will say yes. And then I'll say, not always, but frequently yes. And then I'll say, do you love your grandmother? Yes. So I say, all right, is Tyler's love for her grandmother real? And there's always a bit of silence. And then, like, real sort of hesitantly, they'll kind of mumble yes. I said, Tyler's love for her grandmother is real. It's absolutely real. It's just not real the way the table's real. They have different ontologies. The table and Tyler's love for her mother, And so I asked the students, I want to get them thinking about these kinds of problems, and I'll ask the students. Most of them remember what a DVD was. I said, you know what a DVD is? They said, yeah. I said, it's a physical disc, so it's real, right? Is the movie in it real? Let's say Shrek. Is Shrek real? The movie versus the DVD disc. Then it starts clicking. They're like, yeah, I guess that is real. They're both real. Yeah, they're real. They're not real the same way. But Shrek the movie is real. And for that matter, Shrek the character is real. He's not real like walking around real, but he's still real. He still has an ontology. Right? They're just different. But they're still real. And the love for your grandmother is real, and what those hippies in the English department and the philosophy department, what they're doing, is absolutely real. It's, I would say, vital. Even though physical sciences sort of look down their nose at what's going on in those departments, but they got a lot of nerve. I had a student mention, he said, it's like DNA. I said, that's good, yeah, DNA. DNA is a physical thing, and it's encoded with information that's real, like the DVD with Shrek on it. Same thing. DNA is a really good example. So I mentioned that Descartes split metaphysically, created two distinct categories, one for the mind and one for the body. It's the mind, the non-physical mind, and the physical brain, for example, just to use a particular example. The non-physical mind and the physical brain. Now, in the 20th century, Gilbert Ryle, he criticized Descartes and said that Descartes introduced a ghost into the machine. We should focus on the machine, says science, and not trifle with the ghost. If anything, we should exercise the ghost and just focus on the machine. But we haven't gotten very far in trying to understand the machine. If anything, we got a better grip on the ghost. But if we take Newton into account and the trajectory of the physical sciences, and take stock of how much we don't know about the physical world, about the universe, about the mind, about the brain, about the table, about a list of things, gravity, so on and so forth. If we take stock of all the stuff we don't know, and we look at Newton, and we look at the things he was forced to conclude about action at a distance, that matter has this property super added to it. For we have no idea what gravity is. We have absolutely no idea. Then we have to bracket what we know about the machine. In which case, we end up exercising the machine, and we're left with the ghost. The ghost is something we can discuss and analyze, and turns out with those hippies in the philosophy department and the English departments, what they're doing is quite important and quite serious. And there's a whole lot of make-believe going on in the physics and chemistry departments. A whole lot of make-believe. Even though they're impressed with themselves, it doesn't mean the rest of us have to be impressed with them. I, for one, am not. I see the sciences for what they are. I think the sciences should continue to investigate, should continue along their path, but I think we need to be brutally honest with ourselves about what we're going to figure out and what we know. Because it turns out we don't know much. The sciences are 2,700 years old if we start the clock at Thales, one of the earliest pre-Socratic philosopher. Thales. Probably born in the 650 BC. So if we start the clock there, if we take into account everything from Thales to the present, the sciences don't have much to show. They don't have much to show at all. So we need to I think we need to recalibrate our understanding of science and recalibrate our respect for science. And discontinue our worship of science, though I think maybe in the 21st century United States, we hold science in a bit of contempt and we don't take it very seriously at all. There's been kind of a change of course. Like, all those, the vaccines are gonna, we can't even agree on, most people do agree on these things, but there's a pretty sizable minority that says, oh, these, they were just skeptical about COVID and vaccines and so on and so forth, in anything science had to say. The rest of us have been indoctrinated to worship science. And Nietzsche, a German philosopher, Friedrich Nietzsche, he wrote about this, about the worship of science, and that being a bad omen for that particular culture. Nietzsche, in Beyond Good and Evil, one of his most famous works, he says that physics is an interpretation of the world, no different than art or whatever else. It's an interpretation of the world. It does not explain the world. It's one possible interpretation of the world, and I think that's a very important point that Nietzsche makes. And also to bear in mind, we combine Nietzsche's thoughts about the worship of science and physics being an interpretation of the world, and we combine that with Newton and company exercising the ghost, or exercising the machine and leaving us with the ghost. I think those are two very important thoughts to meditate on and ruminate on and think about, and roll that around in your head a bit. We're left with the ghost, and we've gotten rid of the machine is elusive, and the physical thing is elusive. And as we philosophically investigate through Plato, via Descartes, and then later Hobbes, with the ship of Theseus, the physical world always comes up short. It always ends up elusive. It's always like picking up a sandcastle, and what we're left with are concepts of our experience of the world. We're left with the ghost, and we've gotten rid of the machine, because the machine just gets away from us. The machine's like, Heraclitus's river, or Descartes' piece of wax, or Fiona, or the ship of Theseus. It doesn't really amount to much. The physical world, and we're left with our consideration of the physical world, our conceptual grasp of the physical world. It's pretty good. All right, next episode, we're gonna have a special guest, and I don't know how we're gonna do that yet, but we'll figure it out. And we're gonna talk about Orientalism. I mentioned Orientalism in the Iran episode, but I just mentioned it real briefly. But the special guest and I are gonna discuss the living hell out of that concept, and Edward Said's book on the topic, entitled, wait for it, Orientalism. Whoa. So class is starting. I mean, not class, but I'm not today, but the semester's starting. So I'll try to keep up the frequency of putting out episodes on the here on the Inquiry.